Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, and thanks for taking the time to learn a little bit more about Labster today. My name is Max Bruno, and I'm the team lead for the high school team here at Labster. I've worked with many schools across the country, and super happy we get the chance to connect. Now, for the agenda today, I'm going to do a deep dive and into an overview of Labster, talk more about who we are, what we're doing here, and how we can help. From there, I'll talk a little bit more about the content, how we can implement it into your course. Finally, at the end, we'll leave some time for questions that you may have. Now, whether it's in the class, the lab, or at home, Labster helps solve some of the biggest challenges faced in both high school and higher education science courses today. Now, the way we do this is through engaging virtual courseware. So just to mention a brief background on us, we were actually developed by scientists and educators in 2012 at the University of Copenhagen. Now, our co-founder, he was a PhD student at the time, and he was in charge of all the introductory labs. And very similar to most clients today, he found that some students were disengaged, unprepared, that there were some significant knowledge gaps in the classroom, and that's what led to the original development of Labster. Now, since 2012, Labster has grown tremendously when we have a catalog of over 200 simulations covering a wide variety of disciplines like biology, chemistry, physics, earth science. The list really goes on and on. Labster has been able to reach over 3 million students in about 65 countries. We are now the largest provider of simulations and virtual courseware. Now, Labster simulations have been mapped to AP, IB, and NGSS curricula, and the effectiveness has been proven whether you're in the classroom, fully online, or even in that hybrid format. Now, since 2012, Labster's helped instructors overcome a lot of common challenges. Now, some of these challenges you'll see on the screen here, these include help improve conceptual understanding, boost student engagement, mastering those techniques and protocols. The list goes on and on. Now, I'm going to play a brief video here. Now, as the video is playing, I'm just going to talk over it and really emphasize some of the highlights that we have. So, as mentioned earlier, Labster has about over 200 simulations with new ones constantly being added. Now, an important feature of our simulations is that they range from anywhere from 5 to 45 minutes long. So you can have a simulation with a single key concept or a long protocol spanning multiple concepts. Now, this makes Labster more flexible in a way that you can integrate it with your course. Now, each simulation is built around three main things. You have the student engagement, the lab experience, and conceptual understanding. So when it comes to engagement, you can think of Labster almost like an educational video game. Each simulation is built around a storyline that links abstract theory and techniques covered to real-world applications. So what you could be solving a crime, helping a local sports team learn about exercise, or even helping a doctor diagnose a patient, students are going to learn how these simulations relate to real life and why they need to do them in the first place. Now, once back in the lab, students are required to complete every step that they would in a real wet lab. Now, this includes putting on goggles, gloves, lab coats, even learning how to properly dispose of a pipette tip. The students are really immersed into that real lab environment. And the platform also allows students to learn in a way that's not possible in real lab environment. So for example, we incorporate interactive cellular and molecular visualizations so students can dive in, take a look around, and know it's not just magic taking place. Now, every simulation has multiple choice quiz questions that are embedded throughout, the ability to change variables, as well as the ability to make mistakes. And each simulation is also graded, and the platform can be integrated into most learning management systems. Now, I'll get into more of the learning management systems in just a second. So when most people think of Labster, they think of us solely as virtual lab simulations. However, we're much more than that. We have a lot of supplementary content that follows. So what you'll see on my screen here is all the supplementary content that Labster has. So first, it starts with the lab manuals and lab reports. Now, every simulation has a corresponding lab manual and lab report. And what's really cool about these is they're actually available in the Google Doc format. So you can download these ahead of time, make your own personal edits, such as put on additional definitions, additional questions. You can give that to students in conjunction to the simulation. Now, every simulation also has a corresponding theory page that really highlights what's going on in the simulation, goes over techniques, objectives, as well as those quiz questions. Now, we have two quiz questions. We have one with the answer key for you, and we have a blank copy in case you want to recycle any questions. Now, we also have thousands, and I mean thousands, of science images, as well as some really cool 3D chemistry visualizations. And then we also have our instructor dashboards. What's cool about our instructor dashboards is these integrate directly into your learning management system. And not only are you going to see the students' grades, but you're also going to get student tracking. So you're going to see how much time these students are spending on each individual quiz question, as well as the simulation as a whole. And another cool thing that we have is professional development options, which is what I'd love to connect on, and I can help you connect with your regional director, and they'll tell you more about the professional development options that we have. Now, as mentioned, we integrate into a lot of different learning management systems. On the screen here, you're going to see a variety of these learning management systems that we integrate into. So we integrate into Schoology, Canvas, Blackboard, Google Classroom, Moodle. The list kind of goes on. And as I mentioned, you get that teacher dashboard. So again, this is where you're going to see the grades and the student tracking. And this is also where you're going to upload those simulations for students to work on. And just some data to kind of back Labster up. So this is a study done in 2016 with BMC Medicine, which highlights knowledge, motivation, and self-confidence of students of all knowledge levels. Now, the most significant impact was for the lower knowledge students, highlighted in green. Their knowledge gap actually decreased by about 20%, and motivation and confidence went up across the board in all knowledge levels. Now, I want to show you what's called Course Manager. So Course Manager it's kind of home base. This is where you're going to find all the simulations that we have to offer and all the supplementary content. Now, I'm happy to connect you with your regional director. That way they can help you get access to this page. That way you can try out the simulations and try to find alignments with your course. So for starters, at the top here, you have your toolbar. Now you can search any keyword, any course package, and it's going to help come up with all the different options. This is where you're going to find your science image library, your translated simulations. So we translate into multiple languages. Now these simulations are fully translated into those corresponding languages, as well as those cool 3D chemistry visualizations. Now down here, there's a few ways you can actually search for simulations. One, you can search by subject. You can go by education level, so higher education or high school, or you can even search by language. Now on the side here, we have accessibility mode for any hearing or vision impaired students. And then you can also search by course package. So under the course package here, you can search by biology on all the corresponding course packages there. You got chemistry, engineering, general science, medicine, physics, a whole bunch to choose from. So why don't we jump into a simulation, and I'll kind of walk you through and show you how it works. Now I'm going to do a biology simulation here. Scroll down, we'll do cellular respiration. Oops. Let me just get back over there for you folks. All right, and then once you click on the simulation, you're just going to want to go to the simulation details, and it's going to bring up the simulation page. So as I mentioned, this is where you're going to find that corresponding lab report, that lab manual, those theory pages, as well as the answer key for the quiz questions and the blank copy. Now, as we scroll down, you can also view the simulation features. So you have the average length that this takes students, if it has accessibility mode, the languages that it supports. You also have the learning objectives, the lab techniques, as well as where it falls into alignment. So again, we align with AP, IB, NGSS, and higher education. At the bottom, you're gonna have some general screenshots. And on the left-hand side here, you're gonna have a general overview of what students have to do. Now, when it comes to accessing these simulations, once you get connected with your regional director and they give you access, there's gonna be two ways that you can actually view these. One, you can play it just as a student would right up here where it says play simulation. Or two, we have these video walkthroughs of one of our employees playing that we can skip around and help save some time. So for time's sake today, I'm gonna jump into the video and we're gonna skip around a little bit.
Hi.
Now, when you jump into these simulations, you're gonna be immediately greeted by Dr. One. Now, Dr. One is this little floating robot in the middle. It's our virtual lab assistant. So if students get stuck, have a question, all they have to do is click on Dr. One, and it's gonna help guide them in the right direction. My personal favorite part about Dr. One is it also tells little punny science jokes, depending on the topic. So right now, Dr. One is giving us instructions on where to go. And you're immediately going to also be greeted with the lab pad. So the lab pad is going to be home base for students. It's kind of like a virtual tablet for students. This is where they're going to view their theory, answer questions, view their mission. Top right, they're going to have a variety of tools. Top left, they're going to have their scorecard. Now, every question is worth 10 points. And for every question a student gets wrong, it's going to deduct 2. As instructors, you're going to have that capability to choose either that student's first attempt or best attempt, and that's going to dictate their grade. Now, as I mentioned earlier, every simulation gets related back into that real life situation. So let's skip ahead here. So here we're at a basketball court. Now I know in this specific simulation, we're interacting with the captain and his point guard. The captain's telling us that the point guard's not feeling too well. His energy isn't where the rest of the team's is. And we're gonna have to take some blood samples and head back into the lab to investigate. So once we've selected our blood samples over here, we're gonna head back into the lab. Now, before we can even enter the lab, we have to engage in that lab protocol. So let's skip ahead here. So here we're gonna put on that lab coat. And this simulation is also gonna require a set of gloves. Now, once we do that, we'll be allowed to enter the lab. And once we're inside the lab, everything is fully interactive. Students can go to the different lab benches, they can view the different components. In some segments, they're interacting with posters on the wall. So right now, Dr. One is giving us specific instructions on where to go. We quickly learn that we have to go to the respiratory lab bench. Now on the respiratory lab bench, again, you're gonna see all the materials the students can interact with. You have your glucose meter at the bottom here, your lactic acid meter, you have the interactive graph, and you have the blood sample strips from the basketball court. Again, I'm just going to skip around a little bit here. Now, when it comes to these quiz questions, if a student gets a quiz question wrong, it actually prompts them to reread that theory, and they're going to have to read critically to find the answer. Once they do locate that answer, this multiple choice order gets scattered, so students can't just click through. And once they get the question right, it's going to reinforce that concept and tell them why they were right. Again, just skipping around a little bit. Now, I obviously have this video on mute now, but if I were to take it off mute,
Level of glucose for someone who ate lots of pasta last
I hope you
night.
all can hear this. You'll notice
Move the
Dr.
captain's
One
blood sample
reads out
strip to
loud
the
to
lactic
students
acid
and helps
meter.
walk them through the lab.
The captain's blood lactic acid
I'll let
concentration
that
is
play
10
for a second
milligrams per
here.
deciliter. This is within the normal range of 4.5 to 19.8 milligrams per deciliter and lower than the maximum, indicating that the captain has not yet exercised intensely.
Great, so we're learning that the captain, he's still not feeling well. He hasn't exercised intensely like the rest of the team. And again, just skipping around a little bit here. So here's a chance for students to interact with some atoms. And again, we have those quiz questions that pop up along. So here it gives us the option to even view the image so we can better understand the question. Again, just skipping around a little bit, as I mentioned, we'll have to get you guys connected with your area regional manager. That way they can set you up with access. You can try these out for yourself. Now, as we get towards the end of the simulation here, you always learn how you helped or how you helped save the day. So in this case, we learned that the point guard, he never attended the team pasta dinner the night before, and he never carbo loaded. So that's why his energy doesn't match the rest of the teams. I'm gonna hop out of there. And that concludes our short presentation for today. Now I'd like to open the floor to you guys, and you guys can pop in your questions in the chat below. I'll give you guys a few moments to do that. All right, so we have one question here. What does pricing include? So pricing for high school and higher ed do differentiate. Typically, pricing includes access to the simulations. It's going to include onboarding for you and your colleagues, that learning management system integration, as well as live support for students. And then we have another question here, how can you access? Labster can be accessed from any laptop or desktop computer as long as it has an updated browser. Now that does include Chromebooks. We do support most Chromebooks. Typically what we do is we'll send out a stress test to make sure that your Chromebook can load the simulations properly. And then I'll give a few more moments for some more questions here. Yep, so when it comes to middle school, the question is, do you support middle school? The answer for that is our simulations are geared more towards high school and higher ed. However, we typically say, instructors know their students best, and we encourage you to take a look at the simulations, play around with a few, and see if you can find alignments. I will say we are being used in quite a few middle schools, so it's definitely something to take a look at. Great, and that looks like all the questions we have for today. Again, thank you all for joining me today. I hope you all have a great winter break and happy holidays. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.